Elliot Keck, what's your view of the U-turns that we've seen already, the two we've seen already, and perhaps the dozen more we're expecting today?
Well, hello, Tom. It's deeply disappointing. I think there was, for a very brief moment, there was a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel for taxpayers who have been hit with a 70-year tax high over the last few months. And that glimmer of light looks to have been almost completely extinguished. We still have the reversal to the national insurance increase, and that's a good thing. And there was the increase in the national insurance personal tax allowance earlier this year. But nevertheless, this will still come as devastating news to people that are really struggling with the cost of government crisis.
Given that there is, as you describe, a cost of government crisis, given that there is, of course, this 70-year high tax burden, I believe we can show a graph to those watching on television of just what the tax burden has been doing over the last few decades. So those watching on television can see the blue line. That's the tax burden before the mini budget. You can see it ticks right up there in recent years, skyrocketing to this 70-year high. People may well be able to notice a little orange line. That orange line is where the tax burden would have gone had the tax cuts in the mini-budget been implemented in full. Still a higher tax burden than almost any year since 2018. Elliot Keck, why is it impossible to reduce our tax burden to where it was even only a few years ago?
Well, I mean, it's an extraordinary graph, and it does make you wonder if the political class view taxpayers' money as belonging to the government and not belonging to consumers and households. And as that graph showed, these tax changes would have brought things back to where they were 3-4 years ago. Already a situation in which taxes were causing a huge amount of strain on British people.
And yet what should be done then? Because clearly the markets really want some fiscal consolidation. Clearly the cost of borrowing for the government is higher, and potentially cancelling some of these tax cuts this morning may well be making that cost of borrowing lower. Is it your suggestion that we should instead cut some of this historically high government spending?
Well, you mentioned that we welcomed the mini budget, and we did welcome it in large part. We made two criticisms of the mini budget. One was particularly of the energy plan and its completely uncosted nature. And I think, if you look at the broader, this is a point you've made a number of times, if you look at the whole package of the mini budget, by far and away the biggest commitment and by far and away the biggest impact on borrowing was the energy price plan. And that's something that was threatened to run into the tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of pounds. And that's one area where absolutely the government needs to look at and needs to see if it can be done in a far more efficient and cost-effective way where it targets those on the lowest incomes. Really,
really interesting stuff there. Well, Elliot Keck from the Taxpayers Alliance, thank you for joining us this morning.